Hello everyone, I'm Joanna from UPIM. Welcome to our second webinar this year. Today's topic is building a winning MICE on international event bidding strategy. To start, I would like to invite Mr. Delaney, our Executive Director, to deliver a welcome speech for us.
Good afternoon, my dear friends from the industry. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you for attending our second webinar this year. Special thanks to our consultant Sulu for organizing this webinar and Patrick for moderating our webinar. It's all in your hands. Also, we are very grateful to have our prestigious experts from various dimensions in MICE industry here today, including Ms. Waikin Wong and Ms. Neasa to share their precious knowledge and experience in MICE events bidding. The theme of this webinar is MICE events bidding strategy. International and professional MICE event is a key factor of building Macau as a global MICE destination. After pandemic, many MICE destinations have launched brand new marketing strategy and subvention program to assist MICE events bidding. Under the strong competition, it will be challenging to bring signature conventions and exhibitions to Macau. We have actually established MICE bidding and support working group this year, and will gain assistance and support from integrated resource enterprises, aiming to have more high-quality MICE events to be held in Macau. The webinar will provide fundamental MICE bidding elements, including key components of bidding strategy and proposal writing skills. I hope the knowledge and experience could help participants get more familiar in bidding process and absorb basic bidding skills. Without further ado, let me pass the floor to Patrick and all our guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for those warm words of welcome. And thank you again to IPIM for organizing today's seminar, which is part of the ongoing relaunch of Macau as a premier MICE destination. The topic we're addressing today is building a winning MICE strategy. And with the proliferation of competitive destinations and the globalization of events, it's never been more important to have an intentional, well thought out and executed bidding strategy. So I'm really happy today to be able to focus in on this topic. Bidding is a combination of skills. It's about effective communication, negotiation skills, and also strategic thinking. And today we'll examine the whole ecosystem, the business events ecosystem, how it interacts with associations, and what all of the players have to do in order to be successful. Now, that's a very tall and ambitious ask, but I'm very confident that we'll manage to do all of this morning because we're joined by two esteemed speakers who not only have the theoretical knowledge, but also have the practical experience in bidding for international associations. So I'd like to welcome our two speakers this morning. We have Waikin Wong, who's the Global Director, in fact, the Regional Director for Asia Pacific for ICCA, and Neasa, who is the Manager for the Dublin Convention Bureau. You're very, very welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Pat. Lovely to be here.
Good, tough all to road. So I'm going to ask each of you, if you would, maybe to introduce yourself and tell us what you do in your organization, what your organization does, and maybe as a final comment, if you've ever been to Macau, or when I mention the destination Macau, what comes to mind? Waikin, let's start with your good self.
Hello, everyone. 大家好. I'm Waikin, the Regional Director of ICCA Asia Pacific. My role is to look after the well-being of ICCA members in Asia Pacific and also support the members for their business well-being too. That's why we have the workshop. And I've been to Macau a couple of times. I used to work in Hong Kong. And one word I would say is vibrant.
Vibrant, fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much. Neasa.
Hi, my name is Neasa. I'm from the Dublin Convention Bureau here in Ireland. My role is Business Development Officer, creating creative solutions for our local conference ambassadors and for international associations to bid and host international conferences here in Dublin. When I think of Macau, I suppose I'm sorry to say it's a stereotypical thought of, you know, a James Bond movie. I know Skyfall comes to mind. I did, however, learn that the casino scenes weren't actually even filmed in Macau. They were filmed in a studio in the UK. But that's what brings to my mind.
Well, don't tell that to anybody, Neasa, because the casinos are brilliant in Macau. They're much better than a studio in the UK. But well done. Thank you for both for those very honest introductions about Macau and your roles. So I always love to start on customers and our clients. So Neasa, could I maybe start with yourself and ask you the question about, you know, post-pandemic, when you're looking at associations, and I know you're particularly focused on Europe and North America as your customer base, you know, what are the priorities for associations?
Yeah, look, I suppose there's certainly a post-pandemic world, there's definitely a shorter lead-in time for associations. Associations would usually tend to have very long lead-in times, but I suppose everyone's trying to get back into their rhythm now after COVID. And so we're seeing shorter lead-in times, which kind of has a knock-on effect. So registrations are way shorter now, coming up to the event, you know, could be 2-3 months out, if not even shorter than that. So with that comes flexibility. We need to see more flexibility from our hotels, our venues in terms of contracting, terms, conditions, release dates, and all of that. I suppose something that really hasn't changed too much, but is still of high importance, is budget. So when it comes to association conferences, budget is paramount. You know, associations are typically non-profit organizations, even some have charity status. And so they don't have massive budgets here. A conference is self-financing. It needs to wash its own face. And so they will always be looking at, you know, incredibly tight budgets. And they're also looking at where can they get additional revenue streams, sponsorship, destination subvention, grants, funding, etc.
Wow. Okay, so we have that continuity in terms of emphasis on budget, value for money, support, and the probably the new addition is the shorter lead-in time. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you. Waikin, can I jump over now to your own global view of life, and particularly maybe a focus on Asia? What's happening? And when you're there, maybe you might tell us a little bit about ICCA and, you know, what you're doing in that with such an important organization.
Thank you, Patrick. And Neasa, I just want to let you know, Macau have a lot of great food. You should come.
Definitely, it's on my list now.
Yes, I really miss the crab porridge and the bun, the jupabao, the pork bun. Sorry, I'm just thinking about Macau right now.
Very important, very important. It's such a motivator today, the quality of the food. You're so right about Macau in that aspect.
Yeah, Patrick, if you allow me, I would share the slides, and to everyone, I'm gonna share the slides. I will start to introduce ICCA a little bit, and then we'll talk about the global view and what's the associations want, and then I'll talk a little bit about what's going on. Yeah.
Can I just remind everybody that if they do have a question, we have a wonderful chat facility, and please, we'd love to hear from any of the people who are attending today's webinar. So do feel free, if there's any questions you have or any points that are brought up that are not quite as clear as we'd like them to be, please put that question in the chat function and we'll get to it.
Okay, and let me kind of like share my slides. Might be a little bit of Can everybody see my slide?
Yes, we can see those.
I think that's okay because I'm looking at the full screen. Just to some participants that may not familiar with ICCA, we are ICCA is the global community that's where we focus on associations, conferences, or association business, where we have I will just kind of like quickly run through that. So all our members are coming from service provider. That's one. That's inclusive of destination marketing. That's on the CVB, like DMO, or venue, like you, and then hotel, event managements that provide services to all the meetings, PCO, event planners, and we have event supports where all the tech company or consultant that behind the scene, and also transportations like airlines and things. And one more thing is very important. We will be open up another sector really soon, or sub on the university, because right now universities or academic is under the event support, but we think it's very important to have one group where we're looking about like on the university research as well as the talent capacity that contribute to the business in events industry. So that's where, if you look at the slides or the map, we have 6 offices across the regions. Like the head office is in Amsterdam, and of course that's in Europe, North America, Latin America, Middle East, and South Africa. And looking at it, it's like Asia Pacific. The Asia Pacific office is actually in Malaysia. And having said that, that's what we were saying, that global community where you can actually learn, share, exchange rates between the whole world, I mean, the whole globe. And again, we also have another committee we call the ICCA Association Committee. That's right now, I'm pleased to say that we have more than 360 of them. That would be your direct clients. Why is that? It's important because like ICCA core values that we put a lot more on the business focus. If you see ICCA database, I will share with you in a while. And also the conferences, the trade show, the congress, we create a lot of opportunities on to help you all on the business development. And of course, we advocates, we looked up for innovation and sustainability. That's also the key word. And I think Neasa will kind of like talk about it, where a lot more that's happening in Europe that's focused. And we emphasize on, you know, how everybody should work together to share knowledge, to actually to win bigger and stronger. And again, we are the associations whereby we have different background, coming from different background, different cultures, and we cultivate the awareness of being respectful. So we put in a lot of looking at diversity, inclusiveness, and equality. Okay, next slide. Just to give you a snapshot about what's going on. Some of you may see this association meeting needs before. This is available for ICCA members that we did a survey. I'm just pulling a few kind of like key outcomes that. So what is the association main revenue stream? I'm happy to tell everybody that they still focus a lot more by having meetings and associations, and that's where we a lot of our members or the service providers that will be the focus here would be. So we still will continue business, and they come back with very strong in face-to-face meeting. And another one would be like, have they changed the frequency of their business? So not really. If you see, it's about 50% that they are actually still having it. They don't really cut, or I would say like a lot of people will worry about what virtual meeting that will replace the face-to-face. Can tell you that no, where there is certain values that virtual meeting were not able to kind of like to compensate, definitely. However, that's a lot of people were looking at digital supports that will be able to offer hybrids, right, to able to outreach to some of the delegates may not able to travel. And I want you all to look at the next point is like, would any one association make changes to the RFP? You can see many of them will say yes, and some no, and then there is not sure. Part of the reason is because of the rotations, and also right now, the current situations where a lot of them have some tweak on what their request and how they would like to work together with the service provider, especially on to provide more flexible terms in terms of the contracts, the contracting, and also what's the insurance would be able to cover in certain destinations. Like I mentioned earlier on the hybrids, that is more like an option. It's not saying that it's fully. Why is that you want the conference? What is the legacy behind? What is the meeting impact that if you can put it more, that will be also help you to win the business. Of course, like sustainability, that's something that is key. And everyone is looking for like green environment or green conference, how we can looking at preventions of waste or waste management in terms of the conference. COVID mitigations policy is not so much anymore in many of the country, but people are still concerned about this. And also they are looking for, like I said, the short time frame, like to echo Neasa would mention about short time frame of making decisions. That's also because of the timeline selection idea. Like, what's the key change? That's I mentioned that hybrid and sustainability requirement. That's the two key topic that people are looking at. So I'm not going to talk about this. Like, it's very obvious that people coming back to face. And more than 51% of the stations, they are holding the large event in here this year. And having said that, like right now, we are fully open, like China is open as well. So everyone is coming back for face-to-face for sure. So this is the key outcome. If you were saying that about 91% would say they're changing, and 83% talking about sustainable events and best practices. That's would help you all to work on the plan and how can I put it, more on the strategy behind. So Patrick, should I continue to go on?
Well, I just want
to pass the time.
Yeah, no, you're okay in time, Waikin. I just want to, I suppose, repeat back some of those key learnings that I've understood from you. So good news. The actual meeting, the conference itself remains a key part of the association's business model. But what you're saying is that, and particularly in terms of the RFP, which of course we're all interested in because it's about bidding, that request for proposal, there is a slight change, not only in terms of the rotation, the timing, but also the addition of at least the availability of hybrid supports, and obviously a big emphasis on sustainability. Is that kind of summation of what's happening with the associations?
Yes, it is. That's from the output. Like I mentioned, the competitions is high and huge right now. So every destinations or even organizations, that if you kind of like put on or be I would say like you have the initiative or be proactive to mention this, to offer options. I think that's will kind of like to match up what the clients were looking for, and as well that they know that you are actually kind of like promoting all this and doing all these key trends in the world and helping them in terms of like, looking at the green energy and also safe course.
Very good. And you're using the word, I see it coming up in many publications and on webinars, the word legacy. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means? Yes,
I'm glad that you asked these questions, because there are some country, I was talking to Taiwan, they were looking at like, oh, legacy is someone that lived behind that already dead. It's like a lot of different interpretations. So the legacy, what in the West we're talking about is like, what is the meeting impact? What is that leave behind? I'm giving you one example. That's when I work with Malaysia Convention Bureau, we actually won a conference called the Global Child Forum. And that's the legacy behind that. Because of that forum, the government actually changed and reviewed the children rights law in Malaysia. It changed because of the conference. And that's one example. Second example, I think it will be related to everyone that easier to understand is diabetes conference. One of the strategy when we bid them, when we submitted to bid, right? Malaysia is a very small country, but our diabetes rate is world #1, I would say. And that's something that we need help. And we kind of like bring in work across different I would say ministry. So the government actually pledged, if the conference come over to Malaysia, they raise a sugar price.
Wow.
Yes, and that's how we talk about meeting impact. And if I may, and just talking about, like, if you're looking at Thailand and some of the meeting, one of the medical meeting, they leave it there and they set up like nurse training program or center. So we talk about meeting impact. Very, very practical way of learning into it is like, how many, I'm using medical conference as an example. How many doctors you can bring overseas if this conference is not in your destination? Perhaps 10, 20. But if it's the conference in your destination or it is in Macau, then maybe you will have like few hundreds. And the few hundreds doctors being trained, bring expo, and they also represent Macau. They also be the key ambassador to Macau to share about your technology, the destination, like in that particular field. And that's the meeting impact that we're talking about. You train them and they have better, I would say they have better knowledge and skill, and who will benefit? All the resident, all the citizen, because in a way, the doctor's skill will be higher. And then, you know, when we see that, when we got disease and something like that, you have a better solutions and will help the government to reduce the burden of the cost of the hospitalizations. I mean, that's something that I would explain.
So you're obviously saying that legacy is very closely identified with the strategic priorities of the national government, which of course Macau has laid out very, very clearly. So it's important in terms of creating that right strategy before we go for bidding, to have the clarity as regards what impacts, what are those real tangible benefits that are lasting and sustainable, and that a conference can bring to a destination. And therefore you're more likely to be successful, obviously, because it's aligned to the goals of the association. Before you continue, let me just ask Neasa, does that resonate with your experience, Neasa, as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose to our point, it's working with major stakeholders within your destination to get kind of legacy off the ground. But I think what's of most importance is that you are listening to the association. I believe that this needs to be association-led. So you're listening to your association and what their strategic goals are. What is the legacy or the impact that they want to leave behind? And then you as the destination, how can you then facilitate that? By connecting them with the various different stakeholders within your destination to make that happen. And as Waikin, she gave fantastic examples there. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. You know, you are looking at your own goals, your objectives of the association, and how can you leave something behind that's going to impact on the local environment, the local community, in a social aspect. So it's breaking it down. It sounds a little bit scary, I think, this whole legacy and impact, but when you break it down, it will be very obvious to an association, what do they want to leave behind?
Fantastic. Okay, that's a good takeaway and good instruction in terms of building our strategy. Waikin, you know, ICCA appears everywhere. It's such a central asset in the bidding process, and the ICCA database is famous for a resource of, you know, anybody who's bidding goes to see what are those conferences which might be available. Can you tell us a little bit about that ICCA database and how it works?
Yes, I will. And then I'd like to share. I believe there is a lot of the audience maybe coming from event planners or PCO, or coming from hotel or venue. When you look at it, it's like, it looks big, legacy. meeting impact, sustainability, but how can you play a role? Why should I, is it the government role? But I would say as a community in the destination, we should play a role and we should continue to do bid and lead the bidding. And I'm going to share with you all next So I wanted, before I go into database, I wanted to kind of like to let everybody know about why is that important, that we should have continue to invest in bidding for future business. In May, during IMEX, we just launched the worldwide ranking. That is capture all the association meetings that bring into the to the destination. I wanted to take this opportunity to explain a little bit more about this business analytical. We only capture association meeting. It's not government meeting, it's not corporate meetings, whereby all this, we can't really see there's a pattern. Why is that is important? We focus on association meeting. Association meetings is like, you know, like I mentioned, the medical associations, all the industry have their associations, like hotel association, and furthermore on the technology, because associations, through the association meeting, they can upscale or rescale the industry. So basically, and they have all the some educations and also social networking going on. And again, where all the professionals are able to exchange, I would say, not just a skill set, and also achieve certain guidelines. So that's, we were talking about associations meeting. In the Asia Pacific ranking right now, whereby you would say that the first country will be in Japan. And again, I think this is something that we capture, whereby, don't forget, last year is not all the country has been open markets. So we'll see next, where it will be a little bit different, where Macau and doing quite well, I would say. Macau is in the top 100, I think it's 89, if I'm not mistaken, in the worldwide ranking. And in Asia city ranking, that's Macau for number 54. And a lot of destinations that actually use this to look for a bigger budget and to work with more ministry to help the city development. So that's why that's important to do, to be more aggressively or have the approach to submit bid submission. I want to let you all guess about this number, 21,921. Is it my pay?
I wouldn't say that even goes near your pay, Waikin. I'd say tell us, what does that number mean?
It's not my pay. This is the series of capture of bid opportunities, the database in ICCA database, ICCA portal, that's available in the database. And please bear in mind, the numbers will be growing. We have a very strong team, research team behind that, keep searching on the opportunity and feeding into the database as well. And we also encourage all the members to upload the opportunities. And please bear in mind that all these numbers will go up because there is a lot of rotations going on, and they need to go every year or every 2 years. So that's where we have it. And if you were to see that when ICCA member will know, when you go into the database, there is called business benefit, where you can actually find all the association business. That's where you can search and look at this, where there is a search engine where you can put in keywords to search. I want to show you all, yesterday I just I'll get Shelfan to help out to look at the confirm and also potential. When I do a search, this is without filtering. And you see there's already 10,000 that is available for Macau. That is on the potential. And this is a database we are talking about. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit because when I was a user, before I joined ICCA, like I say, I have the PCO background and also working with the Malaysia Convention Bureau. We make use of the database to look at the key conference that we want And we use the opportunity to also reach out to the local associations. So we have, we have a discussion topic or conversation topic to reach out to local association to introduce our services. So it's not just looking at international business, and by using the database, you can kind of like work on your own local business. And sometimes, like, some of the key professionals, they may not want to see you if you're coming from hotel. They will think it's a sales call. But if we bring in something and do a little research talking about that topic, to say, hey, Prof Patrick, we know that you are attending or you are chairing in the International Conference of Cardiology, and we are really interested in this. Can I see you? Then you make an appointment, introduce your services. And that's how we kind of like build up. And do make use of ICCA platform. Now, 10 and 250.
You're teasing us, Waikin. Tell us what this means.
Okay, so let's just talk about it. 10, that's the confirmed conference that already in Macau. I think Macau is doing a really good job, whereby the past 2 years and there's a close, but now it's a confirmed conference that is coming into already confirmed in Macau. And I know a lot of Macau will kind of like I will look at a bigger area of the Greater Bay Area. There's about 42, and 10 is already in Macau in 2023. And what are the potential leads for the region, for the whole area in 10 years? It's about 250, and that's where you can start tapping into it. Don't waste time and then grab it before Hong Kong, grab it before some other place. Yeah.
That's a very good instruction. Waikin, I'm going to stop you there for a moment, because what you've painted a very clear picture on the importance of research and the fantastic source of that research the ICCA database is to identify potential. Can I jump on, because there's so much to cover, and I want to try and get in some practical examples, and I want to jump in now, Neasa, and ask you to, you've heard, as you rightly, you use the ICCA database all the time, every day, probably, in finding those potentials. Can you walk us through some practical examples of, yes, I found a piece of business, what do I do next?
Sure, absolutely. I just before we get onto that, Pat, I might just give a little bit of context for the group, just so they get a flavour for Dublin, I suppose, and Ireland. So the Dublin Convention Bureau, we're actually part of Fáilte Ireland, which is the National Tourism Development Authority. We're a government agency, state funded, and it's our responsibility to grow market share for the city and the surrounding areas of Dublin. So the business tourism industry in Ireland, pre-pandemic, this was worth nearly 716 million euro to the economy. So it's a highly lucrative sector for ourselves. It accounted for 15% of the overseas tourism spend in Ireland, and it supports up to 20,000 jobs. So just to give more context around that, each business delegate, so one business delegate that comes to Ireland, is worth an average of 1,800 euro per visit. So that's actually 3 times the value of a leisure tourist, so someone just coming on a holiday. So I think that's very important to kind of get a grasp of the value of these conference delegates coming into your city. It's very complementary to the usual leisure tourism pattern. So they come outside of busy summer months, and conference delegates normally come mid-week. So they're not conflicting with leisure tourism. It's a complementary sector. And obviously it has a huge knock-on effect for the wider ecosystem within tourism. So it's not just your conference venue, it's accommodation, it's eating in restaurants, drinking in bars, going shopping, it's AV suppliers. There's a huge ecosystem there. And also regionality. Sorry, Pat.
Just want to be clear, so let everybody, you're part of a dedicated unit.
Dedicated unit within the government body of Fáilte Ireland, absolutely. So
that's
we are
on business events, right?
Yeah,
okay. So
yeah, absolutely.
Bureau. Right, perfect.
The Convention Bureau, absolutely. So we are very lucky. We have additional support being part of a state agency, you know, and a lot of connections and everything like that. So it definitely is, you know, a bonus for us. But I suppose just to say that, you know, conferences and the delegates that come to these conferences, they're hugely valuable to the economy. They bring in revenue, they create jobs, but they also build on these amazing sort of business, health, scientific and educational connections between Dublin and Ireland and the rest of the world. So if we move on to the next slide then, and we'll get into kind of the bidding process. So how do we actually go about to target the business events to come to Dublin? Well, very much as Waikin has mentioned there, the first one is our lead generation, and this is that initial piece of research. And we use the ICCA database, as you said, Pat, earlier, on a daily basis. It's one of the first things we will open up every morning as a platform, and we are, you know, looking up various different conferences. Where were they held in the past? Where is the organization based? And then drilling down into that to see, have they got, you know, local membership? Is there anyone based within Dublin, within Ireland that we can reach out to? We also attend events within universities where we target local academics that are, you know, of prominence within their field, that hold influence within their association. And we educate them on how we could help them to bid and host an international conference. We also have to educate our stakeholders, that's our industry, our government bodies. Also within lead generation, we attend overseas shows, the likes of IMEX and IBTM, and ICCA workshops. And also within the desk research piece, we actually work with a lead generation agency, which is a huge support to us to help us in that. The next step then is to develop that business. So it's essentially relationship management. So again, as I mentioned very earlier on, there normally is a very long lead-in time for association conference. So you're investing in the people involved in this as much as the business opportunity itself. So you need to plant that initial seed of, you know, have you ever even considered this? We can see that you have attended this conference over the years. You've gone to Manila, you've gone to Berlin, you've gone to Macau. You know, have you ever considered bringing this event now to our city? So it's kind of educating them there, and then, you know, telling them that all of the USPs of your destination, because particularly when it comes to academics or other members of associations, they are in their own world. They are not thinking about their destination and what the destination can bring. So it's sometimes pointing out the obvious, actually. So Macau, you're a UNESCO World Heritage Site. How can you use that for your benefit? That is actually a huge draw for people. Oh, I'd love to attend that conference in Macau, and I've actually always wanted to see the city and maybe do a bit of gambling while there. So it's tying it all in together, you know, with a bow, and, you know, really easy to get there. It's easy to get around. It's a walkable, you know, city and all of that kind of stuff. The next step here is to convert that lead. So once you have done your research, you've developed your lead, you've gotten perhaps an academic who said, yes, I would love to bid for this. So then what do you do as a destination? Well, you may need to provide additional information here. This might be a proposal from your various hotels, your conference venues, your suppliers. And again, it's packaging that up, and you know, it might be a document, it might be a video. You may be required to do a bid document, a formal bid document. These tend to be digital versions now. We used to have to provide big, thick coffee table books in the past, but wonderfully we've gone digital now, which is great. But you may also need to welcome the key decision makers of that association to your city to show them. So they may have received bids from various different destinations in a particular region, or if it's a global rotation from all sorts of different regions across the globe, and they are narrowing that down to a short list. So then they want to physically come and visit the city and see, you know, what you've produced on paper, what does that look like in real life? So this is an actual site inspection. You're showing them around your city, you're introducing them to the various key players within your city. So once you've done this, you will also need to upskill perhaps the industry as well to ensure that they're business tourism ready, and so they're, you know, that they understand the different characteristics of a conference delegate versus a leisure tourist. You may need to help the industry in conducting a site inspection. It's very different. We say it here in Dublin ourselves. This is a different show around in your hotel to if you're showing you know, a potential wedding couple at a hotel or whatever. You know, it's a very different sell. So it's sales calls as well, upskilling them on sales calls. Again, it's a completely different audience to leisure tourism or the wedding business, etc. And also, how do you respond to an RFP? So this is, time is of the essence. They may have long lead-in times, but short decision times. So if they say they have a deadline of the 30th of July, you better be sure to get in there, have your bid ready before the 30th of July, and really look at the requirements of the bid. And if they say, if the association is very prescriptive and saying, you know, we want a 10-page document, we want it in font Verdana, size 10, that's what they want. So it's really, you know, ensuring that you're really reading the requirements and answering exactly what they're looking for within that. And don't be afraid to really like show your personality as well within the destination, within your bid or your proposal. Again, highlighting your USPs, explaining the fun stuff about your destination, because again, they're here to attend a conference. They're also here to network. They're here to see the city, but they want to network in nice places and beautiful surroundings, your gala dinner, your welcome reception, etc. All of these things really do matter. There may also be a requirement for pre or post tours. So again, you want to bring in that whole city piece to that. Waikin, you mentioned this earlier, and I think it's really important. You need to ensure that the industry as a whole within the destination, that you're not competing against each other, you're working together. It's the mentality that it's a win for the city, rather than for an individual property. And for me, I think this is this is part of the bigger picture. This is the team approach, and it's really thinking about that domino effect of bringing a large event to your destination. So, okay, you may not win the conference venue, but you may get, a knock-on effect of accommodation within your venue. You may get the gala dinner. You may get the welcome reception. Or it may come down to the drinks in the local pubs and bars, to the shopping in the local shopping streets. So it's that bigger picture there. And then finally, it's the after sales. So this relationship doesn't end once you've converted the lead. Once the association has said, yes, we're coming to Macau, that is not the end of the journey. So you're going to continue to support this event, to help it within a marketing approach, promotion. So again, with this long lead-in time, you may well indeed be promoting the event at the preceding events. So you may have to travel. You may be arming your local ambassador or the international association with marketing materials for this. And again, connecting them to local PCOs. They may need a local professional conference organizer to actually manage the event. And so again, you're bringing in that local knowledge, that local kind of intel to work on that event for them. And then lastly, just after the event, it's that after sales piece of feedback from the planners of the association and of the delegates themselves, because at the end of the day, you want to improve the offering from your destination.
Fantastic, Neasa. You've given us a very clear explanation of the bidding process. And by the way, just reminding everybody that all of these slides will be available. Yeah. And we'll make sure that you'll get them after the webinar. Neasa, we've 15 minutes left. You know, the usual tyranny of time. Can you take us through? I know you mentioned local community and connection with that, and Waikin mentioned it as well, the importance of the local ambassador. Could you address the area of ambassadors, what that means and their role? And you might take us through to some practical examples of those conferences that have an ambassador and those that don't. And I'm asking you to do all of this in the usual impossible task in breakneck speed.
No problem, no problem. Well, look, I think we take it kind of as two different approaches. So as you say, there's the top-down approach, which would be looking at the international associations and identifying suitable conferences for Ireland. Again, we would use the ICCA database a lot for this, and attending overseas platforms. And when we have found that suitable conference, we might see, do we need a local ambassador or host for that? Or indeed, sometimes they don't need one at all. And in that respect, you can just get cracking then, get going on working on that bid for them. So we would call that our top-down approach. But then the bottom-up approach would be when we're focusing on identifying that local potential ambassador based in our destination, who is a member of that international association, who is someone of influence within that association, who people will listen to if they say, I'm putting up my hand here, I would like to bid and I would like to host this conference in my destination. So again, we do that, we identify these people through desk research. It might be looking at the newspapers, looking at publications or journals where they've done a piece of research, and they've written an article. It could be as easy as that. We host events with universities here in Ireland, where we actually invite past ambassadors who have actually been through the whole process of bidding and hosting, and we get them to talk to new potential ambassadors that we're trying to recruit, for want of a better word. And we kind of feel that having that support of the National Tourism Development Authority, where we have practical and financial supports to our ambassadors, they're also hearing directly from people who've been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt, that they feel that there's a sort of an endorsement, and that there's a reassurance, and it kind of offsets any concerns that they may have. So our Conference Ambassador Programme has been running since 2009. We've helped over 3,000 conference ambassadors, and we've identified that 75% of conferences that come to Ireland come here with the help of a local ambassador. So I have a very short video here to just kind of give you an idea of why someone within your destination would actually put up their hand and say, I will bid and I will host for a conference. I hope there's sound coming from that.
Well, there's certainly movement of mouth. Let's have a look and see if we can play it again, and we'll ask our technical team to help us get some sound. But if we can't, we won't
labor on it.
Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on, and you might walk us through those very quickly through those two examples of your use of an ambassador or not. And then I've got two questions for you both. So leave me time, and we're 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'd love to share this example of working with the World Library Information Congress. So this was back in 2018. We met with Philip Cohen, who was the president at the time. He was the president of the Library Association of Ireland, and we posed the question to him, have you ever, we can see online through ICCA, through various other sources, that you have attended the IFLA conference, in the past. Have you ever considered, bringing this to Dublin? And he was, really enthusiastic. I've always wanted to bring this to Dublin. I really want to showcase my city. I'm so proud to be the president of the Library Association, and I'm so proud to showcase my city. So we worked with Philip over 2 years, actually, to bid for this conference. So we initially bid for the conference to come to Dublin in 2021. We all know what's going to happen here. We worked on a 100-page bid document, and we worked with our hotels, our conference venues. We worked on a 2,000 room block for the city. We priced excursions out of the city. We worked even on an emergency plan with the convention centre for all of this. Strangely, we ended up winning it for 2020. So this is what happens. You go in with your expected plan, and sometimes these things don't go according to plan. But when we were up against Rotterdam, Rotterdam won it for 2021, and actually New Zealand were supposed to be hosting it in 2020. But unfortunately, they were still building their convention centre, and they'd had some setbacks, and so they weren't going to be able to host it. So then they felt our bid was so strong that they asked us, would we host it even a year before we had even planned? So we were delighted to win it for 2020. We had site inspections with the core PCO. So that core PCO was one that would travel, no matter where this conference was being hosted around the world, they would travel to make those arrangements and manage the conference. So we showed them our city. We showed them how each venue could work for IFLA, from the meeting spaces to the gala receptions, etc. We really rolled out the green carpet in Ireland. We don't have a red one, to really show them how this event could work. We supported our local ambassadors, Philip, who travelled to Kuala Lumpur in the years preceding this, to promote Dublin. So we would have armed them with videos and little shamrock lapel pins and everything to get those delegates excited, to get them to register for the Dublin 2020 event as soon as possible. Obviously, COVID happened and changed our plans, but IFLA were very keen to keep Dublin on the radar, and so it was postponed until 2022. It happened last year. It was a roaring success. We had over 2,000 delegates. We had a past Irish President, Mary Robinson, who opened the entire conference. We had our Lord Mayor of Dublin speak at it. And since then, we've been working with the local organising committee, actually, on various other events. Because again, it's to look at that strategic overview that people are involved in so many different things, and so there's been a few different offshoot events that have happened since then. So we have a little video just to recap on that event. I don't know, will that play? Or if we have time even for that.
I'm going to hold the video, Neasa, because you've described it in such great detail. I want to take that from a moment and remind everybody that you have a wonderful sequence of a slide deck which has that whole process laid out. But you mentioned something which I want to ask Waikin about just now. You have your plan, you have your dates, your strategy is in line, everything is right. And of course, whatever happens, the conference center in your competitive destination isn't ready, COVID happens. Where you pitch for a piece of business, Waikin, and you don't get it, is that the end of the process?
Definitely not the end. Like I mentioned, it works a lot to do with retentions. It will come back to you. And a lot of time that associations, you need to, like what Neasa was saying, that you need to plant the seeds. That's where you build up the relationship. And again, we talk about like we bidding the top down. I like the top down and the bottom down. Like it could be you are bidding through a core PCO or even the associations itself. And that's when you keep kind of like having the relationship, they will kind of like work out on you and provide the opportunities. I'm talking about like, I think on the floor where the PCO was saying that that's a bureau role, would it be? It may not be. Or convention center. I must say like, some of our members, like in Australia or even in Thailand, in Kuala Lumpur, they build up their own ambassador. When I say they build their own ambassador, meaning is like they work together with their existing client and build them up to bid for international conference. And then they bring them to work together with the Convention Bureau for bigger budgets. But I would say like everyone will play a role to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's not the end. We never say we lose a bid.
No, and I think it's becoming very, very obvious from listening to both of you describe that process of building that relationship of pre-sales and after sales. And if you're not successful initially, then there's always next year. Plus, I keep hearing, and I think it's very obvious to us all, flexibility is key because you just don't know what's going to happen in a bid process. You have your strategy and circumstances, competitive circumstances change. And, I'm really frustrated here with the amount of information. I want to get more. So I just want to remind everybody, we have a question from Inyo as well about, I want you to recognize it. And what are the advantages of Macau to be a destination of MICE when its meeting venues are much smaller than in Hong Kong or in Guangzhou? And I think we will answer that in detail later, but just to say, I think hopefully you would agree with me that when you're creating a strategy, you build that strategy around your positive assets. And small can often be very, very good. And I think one of the trends that's very much out there is the regionalization of conferences and the specialization of conferences. So it's not always when you're bidding in terms of your strategy, going for the large meeting first. Go for the regional, the smaller meeting. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And also, if you're working with anyone from a local university, you don't want to scare them off by, going for a really large conference of 2,000 delegates. If this is their first foray into the conference world, start small, build it up, give them a taste for what this involves. What we find is normally when we are working with a local ambassador and they host a conference for 250 or 400 people, they really strive on it. They love it and they get that taste for it. They'll be back to us. I know you helped us last year, 2 years ago with that conference. I want to bring the global one now, so I think start small, build them up, and they'll be with you. And they also refer the city onto their colleagues, people they work with, other researchers and academics. And that's huge for us, that referral from the Conference Ambassador Program.
Fantastic. So strategically, take a long-term view, build relationships, emphasis on research. I hear that, making sure that you get the best potential piece of business that you can bid for, that's aligned to your local government priorities, that's aligned to where you can have the maximum positive impact. And then you start the process, as you rightly identified, either with a local ambassador or without a local ambassador, but certainly it's a process. And that's very, very clear. And I think it'll become very, very clear. We have 2 minutes to go, but I want to, yes.
Patrick, I just saw the questions. I think that's something that I could share with Yan, where we're talking about the advantage about Macau venue will be smaller. Don't forget association business, just how we mentioned, it may not be it's not like trade exhibitions. It can be 50 to 200. And the trend I would to share with everybody, the biggest ratios that they have is actually from 120 to 600s. Okay. That's medium size. I would think, and again, we talk about how the governments from Neasa is coming from the government or Convention Bureau side. But what about venue? You need the business to survive. And PC, you need this business to survive. You tackle that, and then you look at big size or small size, you bring it in, And like what we will keep on talking about, that it will lead you to a bigger opportunities. And if I may, actually I have another 1 or 2 slides that I wanted to let everybody know. Maybe I don't need to show the slide, just to let people know about, just how we talk about the local associations, the local representative, like the local host. So what is the number of international regional association in Asia Pacific? We have about 1,096 here, and this number will be growing. And in mainland China, we have about 78, and Macau, you have 6. It's a great number. So tackle, just look for them, hunt them down, and kind of.
I was going to ask you for your final piece of advice, your best advice, Joaquin, but I think that sums it up. There's the potential out there, which you've identified via the database. Hunt them down. The opportunity is out there. And Neasa, you've given us a very clear process in which to hunt them down. So have you a final word of advice, Neasa, for everybody? We know what Joaquin's is, which is hunt them down.
Hunt them down, and I would say don't give up either. There's a lot of politics at play within associations. So, you know, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. We have one ambassador that always comes to mind, Dermot Cox. He bid for his conference 3 times before he won it for the city. When he did bring it here, the expected numbers were around 1,700 delegates. And I think because he had made such a name for himself bidding for throughout these number of years, when it did come to Dublin, it went to double figures of that. So it was 3,000, over 3,000 delegates when it came to Dublin. So yeah, don't give up.
Fantastic advice. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your insights. I know the slides you have a lot more information. You're going to share that with everybody, but really appreciate all our people who linked in for our webinar. Appreciate your insights, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue with you in the future, and reminding everybody we'll have another webinar in September on technology. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you again shortly.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.